Breaking: Arsenal plot stunning double raid for Eduardo Camavinga and Vinícius Júnior. Today's story could be one of the biggest transfer talking points Arsenal fans have heard in years. If you love Arsenal as much as we do, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's dive straight into today's massive Arsenal news. Come on, you Gunners. Breaking: Arsenal plot stunning double raid for Eduardo Camavinga and Vinícius Júnior. Welcome back, Gunners. If you've made it this far, you're witnessing what could become one of the most talked about transfer sagas of the summer. In part one, we explored why Arsenal have been linked with Eduardo Camavinga and Vinícius Júnior, and why supporters around the world are dreaming of this incredible double signing. Now it's time to answer the biggest questions. How realistic are these transfers? What is Mikel Arteta planning? And could Arsenal actually convince Real Madrid to negotiate? Let's get straight into it. The first thing Arsenal would have to overcome is one of the biggest obstacles in world football: Real Madrid themselves. For decades, Real Madrid have operated differently from almost every other club. When they identify a player as part of their long-term project, they rarely allow that player to leave. Instead, they build dynasties around elite talent. Camavinga and Vinícius are both viewed as key members of Real Madrid's future. That is why any discussion surrounding their futures immediately attracts worldwide attention. Arsenal understand this. They know these would not be ordinary transfer negotiations. These would be among the most difficult deals any sporting director could attempt. Let's start with Eduardo Camavinga. Why would Arsenal want him so badly? Because he perfectly represents modern football. He's aggressive without the ball, elegant with possession, fearless under pressure, comfortable carrying the ball through midfield, and intelligent enough to play multiple positions. Those qualities are exactly what Arteta values. Arsenal don't simply buy talented footballers anymore. They recruit players who fit a specific tactical identity. Camavinga fits that identity almost perfectly. Imagine Arsenal trying to control a Champions League knockout game. Declan Rice shields the defence, Martin Ødegaard dictates the tempo, Camavinga breaks opposition lines with powerful runs. Suddenly, Arsenal possess a midfield capable of matching Europe's very best. Against Manchester City, against Bayern Munich, against Paris Saint-Germain, against Barcelona. That level of quality is exactly what separates good teams from champions. Camavinga would also solve another problem. The modern football calendar is relentless. Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, League Cup, international football. Players need rotation. Camavinga's versatility means Arteta could rest several players without significantly weakening the team. Need a defensive midfielder? Camavinga can do it. Need a left back? He has done it before. Need a box-to-box midfielder? No problem. Very few players offer that flexibility. Now let's turn our attention to Vinícius Júnior. If Camavinga strengthens Arsenal, Vinícius transforms Arsenal. There is a huge difference. Elite wingers don't just score goals, they change entire matches. Every defender becomes nervous. Every fullback starts dropping deeper. Every midfield must provide extra defensive cover. That creates space everywhere else. This is exactly why Vinícius is considered one of the world's most dangerous attackers. Picture this. It's the North London derby. The Emirates Stadium is rocking. Bukayo Saka attacks from the right. Vinícius Júnior attacks from the left. Martin Ødegaard is finding passes between the lines. Opposing defenders don't know where to focus. Double mark Saka. Vinícius gets space. Stop Vinícius. Saka becomes unstoppable. Close both down. Ødegaard has room to create. That attacking balance would make Arsenal incredibly difficult to defend against. But let's be realistic, this is where the financial side becomes extremely complicated. Signing one world-class player is expensive. Signing two Real Madrid superstars would require enormous investment. There would likely be a massive transfer fee. High wages, performance bonuses, agent commissions, long-term contract commitments. Even for a club as ambitious as Arsenal, those are significant challenges. However, Arsenal's executives have shown they are willing to invest when the right opportunity appears. Think back to recent transfer windows. The club spent heavily because they believed those signings would improve the squad for years to come. Arteta has earned the trust of the board. Every successful season increases Arsenal's financial strength. Champions League football generates more revenue, commercial partnerships continue to grow. Global fan engagement is stronger than ever. All of that gives Arsenal greater flexibility than they had several years ago. Another interesting factor is competition. If either Camavinga or Vinícius were genuinely available, Arsenal would almost certainly not be the only club interested. Europe's biggest clubs would join the race immediately. That means Arsenal would need to convince the players that North London is the best destination. Fortunately for Arsenal, they now have several strong selling points. A young squad, an ambitious manager, Champions League football, a passionate fan base, and a clear long-term project. Those are powerful arguments when speaking to elite footballers. Arteta himself has become one of Arsenal's greatest recruitment tools. Players consistently speak about his coaching, his attention to detail, his tactical ideas, and his ability to improve individuals. Many footballers now believe joining Arsenal could help them reach another level. That wasn't always the case. It's a sign of how dramatically Arteta has changed the club. Now imagine Arteta sitting across the table from Camavinga. He explains his vision. He describes a midfield built around energy, control, and technical excellence. He shows tactical footage. He outlines how Camavinga could become one of the Premier League's dominant midfielders. It's easy to understand why that conversation would be exciting for any ambitious player. The same applies to Vinícius. Arteta could offer him the chance to become one of the faces of Arsenal's next great era, a team competing for every major trophy, a league watched by millions around the world, an attack built around speed, creativity, and relentless pressing. It's an attractive sporting project. Of course, convincing the players is only half the battle. Real Madrid would still hold the strongest negotiating position. Unless Madrid decided a transfer suited their own plans, completing either deal would remain extremely difficult. That's why many analysts believe these stories should be viewed as ambitious speculation rather than imminent transfers. Even so, Arsenal's growing stature means they can now be linked with football's elite, and supporters are paying close attention. One thing is certain, Arsenal are no longer shopping only for potential. They're targeting players capable of making an immediate impact at the highest level. Whether these specific deals happen or not, the message is clear. The club wants to compete with Europe's biggest teams, and that's exactly what supporters have been waiting to see. But the story doesn't end there. What if Arsenal somehow completed both signings? How would the starting 11 look? Who would lose their place? Could this become the strongest Arsenal team of the Premier League era? And how have fans around the world reacted to these sensational rumours? We'll answer all of those questions in part 3, where we'll build Arsenal's dream lineup and explore how these blockbuster moves could reshape English football forever. Imagine this. 2 of Real Madrid's biggest stars. One is one of the world's most exciting wingers. The other is among the finest young midfielders in world football. And now, both names are being linked with Arsenal. Yes, Gunners! Today's discussion revolves around Eduardo Camavinga and Vinícius Júnior. As reports and transfer speculation continue to suggest, Arsenal are exploring ambitious opportunities involving the 2 Real Madrid superstars. Before we begin, it's important to point out that nothing has been officially confirmed. These reports remain speculation, and any deal would be incredibly difficult. But with Arsenal's growing reputation under Mikel Arteta, supporters are asking one question. Could Arsenal actually pull off one of the greatest transfer windows in Premier League history? Let's dive in. Over the last few seasons, Arsenal have transformed from a club fighting for Champions League qualification into genuine title contenders. Mikel Arteta has completely changed the culture. The Emirates Stadium has become one of Europe's toughest places to visit. World-class players are now looking at Arsenal differently. Instead of asking, why Arsenal? Many are beginning to ask, why not Arsenal? That change alone has opened doors that were completely closed just a few years ago. And now the club reportedly wants to take another massive step. Let's begin with Eduardo Camavinga. The French international has been admired across Europe ever since bursting onto the scene as a teenager. His ability to control midfield games, his calmness under pressure, his defensive intelligence, and his versatility have made him one of football's most complete young midfielders. Whether he plays as a defensive midfielder, a number 8, or even at left back, Camavinga always seems to deliver. Few players combine athleticism, technical quality and tactical intelligence the way he does. That's exactly why Arsenal supporters have dreamed of seeing him in red and white. Reports claim Arsenal have monitored Camavinga for some time. This isn't something that appeared overnight. The club has admired his profile because he perfectly fits Arteta's football philosophy. Arteta loves players who can play multiple positions. He wants midfielders comfortable receiving the ball under pressure, players capable of winning possession, starting attacks, and dominating transitions. Camavinga checks almost every box. And imagine a midfield featuring Martin Ødegaard pulling the strings, Declan Rice protecting the defence, and Eduardo Camavinga driving forward with his incredible energy. That combination could become one of the strongest midfields anywhere in Europe. It would provide creativity, power, control, and defensive security all at once. No wonder Arsenal fans are becoming excited every time Camavinga's name appears in transfer discussions. But there is one enormous obstacle: Real Madrid. Los Blancos consider Camavinga one of their long-term stars. He's still young, he's loved inside the club, and whenever he plays, he usually impresses. That makes any transfer incredibly complicated. Real Madrid are under no pressure to sell, which means Arsenal would need something extraordinary even to begin serious negotiations. Now let's turn to the even bigger story: Vinícius Júnior. One of football's biggest global stars, a Champions League winner, a match winner on the biggest occasions, a player capable of changing games completely on his own, and somehow his name has also found its way into Arsenal transfer conversations. Just imagine the Emirates crowd seeing Vinícius running at defenders every weekend. His blistering pace, his fearless dribbling, his creativity, his goals, his ability to destroy defensive structures. Very few defenders enjoy facing Vinícius. He's the kind of player who forces opponents to completely change their defensive game plan. For Arsenal, adding someone of his quality would completely transform the attack. Bukayo Saka on one side, Vinícius on the other, Kai Havertz or another striker through the middle, Martin Ødegaard supplying passes. That attack would strike fear into almost every defence in Europe. The pace, the movement, the technical ability, it would be breathtaking. But once again, reality quickly enters the conversation. Vinícius is one of Real Madrid's biggest stars. Any deal would likely require an enormous transfer fee. His wages would also be among the highest in world football. Those financial challenges explain why many analysts believe any move would be extremely difficult. Still, football has taught us one important lesson: never say never. Now, a few years ago, very few people believed Arsenal could attract players like Declan Rice. Yet the club made it happen. That signing changed perceptions across Europe. Now Arsenal are viewed as a club capable of competing for elite talent. Another factor making these rumours fascinating is Arsenal's ambition. The club isn't thinking small anymore. The objective is clear: win the Premier League, challenge for the Champions League, become one of Europe's dominant clubs. To achieve those goals, Arsenal know they may eventually need players already considered among the world's best. Camavinga fits that description. Vinícius certainly does. Defenders, Europe-breaking Arsenal. Plot-stunning double raid for Eduardo Camavinga and Vinícius Júnior. Welcome back, Gunners. The transfer world is watching Arsenal closely, and today we continue our deep dive into the sensational reports linking the North London club with two Real Madrid superstars, Eduardo Camavinga and Vinícius Júnior. In part one, we looked at why these names have created huge excitement among Arsenal supporters. In part two, we analysed the tactical reasons behind the interest and the enormous challenges involved in trying to sign players from Real Madrid. Now, in part three, we take things even further, because the biggest question every Arsenal fan is asking is, what would Arsenal actually look like with Camavinga and Vinícius Júnior wearing the red and white shirt? Could this become the greatest Arsenal team of the modern era? Let's imagine the possibilities. The dream Arsenal lineup with Vinícius and Camavinga football fans love imagining the impossible. And if Arsenal somehow managed to bring both players to the Emirates, Mikel Arteta would have one of the most exciting squads in world football. Let's start from the back. In goal, Arsenal already have strong options and a defensive structure that has become one of the best in the Premier League. The biggest transformation would happen further forward. Defence. A foundation for success. One reason Arsenal have become serious title challengers is because of their defensive organisation. Players like William Saliba and Gabriel Magalhaes have developed into one of Europe's strongest centre-back partnerships. Their combination of speed, strength, positioning, confidence on the ball allows Arsenal to play a high defensive line. That style requires defenders who can handle pressure, and Arsenal have built exactly that. But modern football is not only about defenders. The midfield is where games are often decided, and this is where Eduardo Camavinga could completely change Arsenal. Midfield dream: Rice, Camavinga and Ødegaard. Imagine Arsenal controlling possession against Europe's biggest teams. Declan Rice sitting deeper, Camavinga moving across the pitch, Ødegaard creating chances. This midfield would have everything: defensive power, technical ability, creativity, energy, press resistance. Camavinga's ability to escape pressure would give Arsenal another dimension. When opponents press aggressively, Arsenal would have another player capable of breaking through that pressure. Think about Champions League football. A team like Bayern Munich decides to press Arsenal high. Many teams panic. But with players like Rice, Camavinga and Ødegaard, Arsenal could calmly play through the press. One pass breaks the first line. One movement creates space. Suddenly, Arsenal are attacking. That is the type of quality required to win trophies in Europe. The attacking revolution. Vinícius Júnior at the Emirates. Now we reach the most exciting part. Vinícius Júnior, the Brazilian superstar, would bring something Arsenal have always wanted. A true game-changing winger. Someone who can create something from nothing. Someone who can win matches individually. Imagine a Premier League defender preparing for an Arsenal match. The manager says, "Stop Bukayo Saka." But then they remember. They also have Vinícius on the other side. Suddenly, the defensive plan becomes a nightmare. Do you double team Saka? Vinícius attacks. Do you focus on Vinícius? Saka gets space. Do you defend both? Then Arsenal's midfield controls the game. This is why elite attackers are so valuable. They don't just score goals, they create fear. They force opponents to change their entire strategy. Vinícius and Saka, the Premier League's most dangerous wing partnership. For years, Arsenal supporters have dreamed of having two world-class wide attackers, a player who can dominate the right side and another who can destroy opponents from the left. Vinícius and Saka would potentially create one of the most exciting attacking partnerships in world football. Both players are fast, creative, direct, technically brilliant, capable of scoring and assisting. They would give Arsenal incredible attacking balance. How would other Premier League clubs react? Now imagine Arsenal completing these signings. The reaction across England would be enormous. Manchester City would take notice, Liverpool would take notice, Chelsea would take notice, Manchester United would take notice, because Arsenal would no longer simply be building a title-winning squad. They would be building a global superstar team. For years, clubs like Real Madrid, Barcelona and Manchester City have been able to attract the biggest names, but Arsenal's project has changed. The Emirates is becoming a destination. The club has Champions League ambitions, the squad is young, the manager has a clear vision, and the supporters are creating an incredible atmosphere. What would this mean for Arsenal's future? Even if Arsenal do not sign both players, the fact that names like Camavinga and Vinícius are being discussed shows something important. Arsenal's reputation has changed. The club is now connected with the highest level of football talent. The goal is no longer simply finish in the top four. The goal is win trophies. Mikel Arteta has built a team with a strong foundation. Now the next step is adding the final pieces. The difference between competing and dominating often comes down to having players who can decide the biggest moments. Vinícius is that type of player. Camavinga is that type of player. But the biggest question remains, would Arsenal actually make a move for both stars? Could the club afford a transfer operation of this size? And what would happen if Real Madrid opened the door for negotiations? In part 4, we will reveal the final verdict, analyse the realistic chances of these transfers happening, discuss Arsenal's possible next moves, and explain why this could become one of the most talked about transfer stories of the summer. Stay tuned, Gunners.